Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching the Crystal Petry Podcast, Season 3. On today's podcast, we are going to learn all about something new and different, something that I never even thought about, and that being deaf and dating. And Kellina Powell is here to educate me and everyone else about this. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Kellina. Again, this is something I never even thought of, and I know it's because I'm not in that community. But yeah, I mean, dating is huge in any community that you are in. So specifically today we're talking about being deaf and dating. And before we get into the podcast, Kellina, I just want to give my disclaimer here. For everyone that's listening and watching, Kellina has given me consent to say deaf when it refers to her. So you'll hear me using that word throughout this podcast, but I have gotten consent. I did ask. I did ask. So, how are you, Miss Kellina?
I'm good. How about you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, where in the world are you?
I'm in Toronto, everybody. So I'm actually located in Canada, Toronto.
How, I did not know that.
Yes, I am. Everybody's like,
What?
what?
You're in a
I'm like,
whole
yeah.
nother country. I'm international now. I'm international. Okay, so let's, get to the podcast about being deaf and dating. Dating is already hard. I mean, I feel like everybody can admit and agree that dating is hard. But when you add a different element of being deaf, I think, and I could be wrong, so please correct me, that just adds another level of difficulty to an already difficult situation.
Yeah.
So, when you are dating, how do you typically explain your deafness to the new person that you're dating?
So it took me a while to open up, first of all. For some people who's probably wondering like how long did it take to open up? Like really depends. Usually before I open up, I always ask them a question like, oh, what if someone, your partner you're dating, end up having a disability? How would you feel about it? And then so I will hear the response, and then if the response is really good, then I would let them know like, hey, I'm actually a disabled person, and then I let them know. But if the response are bad, that's how I know that shouldn't be someone should be dating or talking to in the first place. So that's really how I bring it out because I like to see what the response first before I even talk about myself.
Okay. And how long, I know you touched on that just a little bit, Kalina. How long did it take you before you got comfortable asking that first question and revealing your deafness? Was that like immediate?
Yeah, immediately. Cause I value time a lot for some people who don't know. But like nowadays, everybody value their time, right? I value my time a lot because I don't want to waste my time. Why am I gonna wait another 2 or 3 months to find out the answer where I can just simply ask them the question on the first date? Um,
Right.
so it doesn't make sense of carrying someone on, and it's not fair for that person too, right? Because like that person be like, "Why did you drag me on this month?" And no one likes to pride, especially when you're dating somebody. I know a lot of people when you're dating someone, they want to know everything off the bat. Some people do that, and for me, like I like to take my time, get to know people, but I realize a lot of people do not like to take their time. And again, they value their time, right? Some people like, hey, well, you need to let me know off the bat. What is something that you need to tell me? And like, I'm like, okay. So yeah, I let them know off the bat, and I ask them the question on the first date.
Okay. And who do you date? Do you date exclusively hearing or non-hearing or both?
I honestly, I never dated someone who is from the deaf community,
Okay.
so I never met them before. The guys that but I never dated my deaf community. I only be dating the hearing community. Again, it's not on purpose. Everyone to for you to be like, oh, is she doing that because she only like no? It just I never met them yet. I haven't met the one from the deaf community.
Right. So don't get in her mentions talking about at Kalina.
So.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, so for right now, since you have exclusively dated people in the hearing community, what is the best way for them to communicate with you? What do you prefer?
I prefer vocal, but also to someone that can face me all the time when they're speaking. So that's something that they have to, you know, be able to accommodate me, I would say. Yeah. So how long they speak very clear, like for some people, I know some people like mumbled a lot, and I always try to like tell the person like, hey, if you mumbled, I'm not gonna understand you. So you gotta talk very clear for me.
Right. Do you know American Sign Language?
A little bit. So I did learn it when I first became deaf. I did learn it because I went to a deaf school. And so, unfortunately, when I was growing up, I had to stop going to the deaf school because it was too far from my home. And so, yeah, and I lost it completely when I went to the full time in the hearing school.
Okay. So, well, that was going to be my next question. Do you care if they know sign language or don't know sign language?
No, I don't. As long as they're open to learn sign language, that'd
Mhm.
be great. They don't have to know out the back, so.
Okay, so for dating, we all know at this point in time, a lot of dating is done like through apps and things like that.
Yeah.
Is there a specific app or platform that you use to date on, or is it just, we got the app, we if I see you in the library, like what is that process for you?
For me, like I use app, but not like that because people are catfish, to be honest.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, thank you for the app. And so I don't know, like app. I don't know. I met a few great individuals through the app. Great individual. Don't get me wrong. I met so many great people, but it was just like I wasn't feeling it. So I feel like I am starting to meet people through coffee, like the coffee shop, or even when I'm doing like I'm doing work, I meet there. Or number two, networking events, right? So I'm always going to networking events. I meet great people. Um, and my next step is honestly, I really wanted to try speed dating. So I wanted to try that now. Recently, that speed dating is now coming out like crazy because obviously the summer is coming. Everybody's doing that now, and I'm like, so one of my friends just literally said, "Hey, let's try this," and I'm like. You want to do speed dating? For me, I have to get to know the person. I'm so sorry. I cannot get to know someone for 5 seconds or like 5 minutes. I'm like, huh? So I'm interested. I probably can do one this summer and check it out. So.
And see how that and see how that goes. Okay, so what has been like some major turnoffs or difficulties for you when dating a hearing person?
The biggest turn off is when someone cannot be understanding. So I know that a lot of time we just really person come with a lot of things, right? So if you're not really want to accept that we are facing difficulty, and number two is openness, right? Are you open to really learn about my struggles? Are you really open to learn what is it to take and help me to communicate better? And number three, the biggest turnoff is when I don't mean it in a rude way, but I know a lot of partners try to do the best they can for the partner, but do not take the independent from your partner, right? So I tell a lot of partners is that you have to let them be how they are, right? Because you have to remember they were fine before you came into their life,
Absolutely. Like they
right?
lived a whole life before
Exactly.
you got there.
Exactly. So I always tell people like, especially partners, be mindful, right? Just be mindful, be open, be transparent with the person. Like, hey, listen, how can I accommodate you better? What is it something I can do to help you to get things off your track? So I would say those are like the top three biggest like ick when it comes to dating. Um, but yeah, the one thing I would say the biggest red flag for me, especially, is the person get not intimidated, but someone who feels like they can't ask you questions, right? So if you're not that comfortable to ask your partner a question about what they need help with, um, why are you dating the person? I'm just
Right.
saying. right? Why are you dating a person if you don't know? And also defending, right? If I'm dating somebody and someone making fun of me because like, oh, haha, you're dating a tough girl, like you can't do anything. So having someone to defend us, that's very important.
Right, right. What about, okay, so you gave us three things that are like red flags that you don't like. What
Yeah.
about three things that you like that are turn-ons for you?
A person that is very open, who always want to ask a question like, "Hey, tell me about this. How did you become deaf? Like, what is it that helped you navigate the hearing world? And what is it you know. So, for example, like I went on a date like years ago, and the person knew already. He said, I noticed that you were hearing aid, and then he said you have the deaf like speech, and I'm like, wait, what? And I how do you know? And then he's like, oh, I kind of like sucked you a little bit. I'm like, you stop on Instagram, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, I was just so nervous to talk to you because I didn't know how would you communicate. So I love when a person very curious to know how you communicate and really curious to know how to help you in a way. So that's
Mhm.
definitely a big turn on. And when someone just really just being themselves, I would say, not to try to be someone else who they're not, just because you are disabled. Like you shouldn't be faking to be someone else just because your partner's disabled or because you may feel like, oh my god, if I become this type of person, will that person still love me for me? So it happens a lot. So I see that through other people, but not for me. But I always tell my date and my partner, like, listen, be yourself. Like if you have a question, let me know. So yeah.
What would you say is the most common question that you get when dating for the people that do ask questions?
I would say the very first thing they always ask me is, by the way, you have an accent. What accent
No,
is it?
no.
I get that a lot. Like people always ask me like, "Hey, do you have an accent?" Or like, and I was like, "No, I actually had a speech delay when I was younger, and so I did a lot of speech therapy. So I had to explain it to them, and they're like, wow." So that is the most common question I ever get. Like, "Hey, educate me more," and then they get so curious. Then they're like, "Okay, I'm this." I'm like, "Okay, whoa, I didn't even know you're that interested."
Right.
So yeah, that was one of the big question I get asked a lot. Like, hey, you have an accent, you know?
You know what? We as a people, Kellina, we got to do better. We got to get out more. We got to hang around with some people outside of our circle, like that they would be like,
Yes.
you have an accent. Like, come on, people.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Like people are like, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't know, but yeah, I get that a lot. Like you have an accent.
So, okay. How did you become deaf? Were you born deaf or did something happen once you were born, after you were born?
So what happened? Everybody, I got an ear infection at the age of 4. So I was
Okay.
actually born healthy baby, no more hearing. Everything was fine until that one day I had an ear infection from the daycare. And so my family doctor prescribed me an ear drop. However, my mom brought it to the daycare. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. It's either the staff members put too much eardrop in my both ears, or they put on the wrong time. And then that same day, I actually became deaf when I was walking
Really?
home
Immediately like that?
immediately. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have never if I was your mom, I would have been so upset. And I'll use a
Yes,
PG word on that.
yes, yes. It was really bad. My mom didn't know what to do. I remember like it was yesterday. My mom reaction was so bad, and because I told my mom like I can't hear her. Thankfully, my grandmother was a nurse at the time, so she rushed home from the hospital. She did so many things to my ears, and I was confused. I'm like, what's happening? I can't hear. And so my grandma figured it out, and she's like, yeah, something that can she's deaf, like she can't hear at all.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. We'll get back to the podcast, but that reminds me of Ray Charles' story. He was born healthy, able to see, and then he fell into, or he got some kind of chemicals in his eyes.
Mm, yes.
I think he was like 4 or 5 as well, and then that's how he became blind. But I'm telling you, as your parents, yeah, that daycare would have heard me. That daycare would have heard me. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about emotional connection and intimacy, which again, very important when you are dating anyway. Very important when you're dating anyway. How important is it for your partner to immerse themselves in the deaf culture, or do you even care about that?
Um. Yes and no.
Okay.
I am always very flexible with my partner. If I were to date somebody, I will make sure that my partner is comfortable. I don't want to put them in a very awkward position
Right.
because you have to learn sign language in order to be accepted to the deaf community. They probably know that already. They probably be like, like for example, like I know I have a networking event coming up, and it's strictly for the deaf community. And I did tell like of my friend who doesn't know sign language, but they're nervous. They're like, oh my god, I'm not, like Kellina, we'll come and support you, but like, how do you learn sign? So I would teach them the basic sign so that they know.
Okay.
And then so that way they're not uncomfortable. So it really depends how comfortable my partner is, but I'm not really that big on it, but it'd be nice to have someone who's very open and want to learn to be part of the deaf community. So
How can the person that you are dating, or a person that's interested in dating you, Kellina, how can they show that they are actively listening? And as I'm asking that question, I feel like even people in the hearing community need to know that.
I honestly, so some of you probably don't know, so especially for someone from the deaf community, we catch up on body language very easy. So if we notice that you're not really listening and paying attention, you're just giving a dry response, we already know off the bat you're not interested in talking to us. So be very careful. So I can pick up very quick if someone's interested or if someone's not. Very much so quick. And I feel like because a lot of the deaf community, we rely on lip reading, we rely on facial expression. The body language is also part of it too. So we study that a lot, more than you think. So yeah, that's how I can tell.
Wow. And you know what? I mean, they say, and I'm sure I probably got the number wrong, Kellina, but they say like 80% of communication is nonverbal anyway. It's your body
Exactly.
language, it's your facial expressions, it's all of that. And 20% of it is the actual verbal part of communicating. And again, those
Exactly.
numbers might be wrong, but that's what I
It's
read.
true. It's true. It's true. Because think about it. Say I speak a different language, you speak a different language. How are we gonna communicate? Through body language, the body movement, like the face, like yeah, yeah, like
Yeah.
right? So it's the
Yes.
same thing, and it's true. It does. It makes sense.
Yes. How do you build emotional intimacy when your communication style differ? So you are deaf, and you've stated that right now you have exclusively dated hearing. So the communication styles are different there. How do you build emotional intimacy?
Honestly, through date. So I like to do a lot of like activities, right? So that way I can build that intimate connection with the person.
Mhm.
Because I feel like if I cannot have fun with you, right? It's like
Why
getting
are
to
we
know
doing
somebody.
this? Why are we doing
Exactly.
this?
Exactly. So it's like we need to be for me, I'm a very active person. I love doing activities. So if you're not somebody who's not like doing activities, then we should not be together. So I'm a very active person. So that's honestly the way how I can learn. Like you know how they always say, if you can do a problem solving activity with your partner, you're gonna learn so much more about them. So
What?
that's
I
where
haven't
I
heard
get
that.
yeah. So let's say for example, the escape room or anything that's solving problem, you will learn about your partner, and that's how I learn if the person is right fit for me or not. Because I
That's
like to do
such a great
activities.
idea.
It is exactly. I like that because it helps me to understand that this person flexible, this person reliable, this person trustworthy. Can you trust them with your problem? Because before you give someone your problem, you have to test them first to see if they are able to solve it. So
That's true. That's true. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, what about, okay, you're dating, you're in a relationship. What about, I guess, like miscommunications? Like, what's your standard of like allowing, or tolerating, whatever word you want to use there, of like the miscommunications or the mess ups or the fraudulent slips? Like, what's your tolerance? How long do you give a person of, oh, I didn't know type situation before you're like, okay, cut off?
the first strike.
Really? What? You don't give them no time.
Nope.
What?
So the reason why that I don't give no time is because I'm too busy. I have a lot on my plate. Like I don't have time. It's either so usually it's really, honestly too. It depends on the situation. I'm not saying like one strike you're done. It's
Right.
like it depends on what happened. What happened, right?
Yes.
So usually I try to be fair, but again, it depends on the situation. What's happening? So if it's something that like you need to leave, you will leave,
Right.
right? But if it's something super super small, I'll be fine with it. I'll give another chance, but I will inform my partner that hey, like I don't want like this, but if this happen again, just know we're done. So, so I'm very like straight up like that. I did have a hard time like in my past, but like thankfully I never had any bad relationship like that. Thankfully, um, like I remember I think my very first boyfriend, like he it wasn't on purpose. Like I study him very well, and he did something, but he didn't meant it. But he would say like he didn't know, and then I told him like fine, but please next time like talk to me about it. And he's like okay, no problem. And I was like okay. And ever since we never had that problem. I feel like once you show people how they should treat you, the more respect they're gonna have for you. So I feel like that's why I only give them two chances and then you're done. Or one chance. Again, it depends on the situation. But I never go beyond like three or four chances. I don't do that. I don't have time. I'm too busy. You're busy. I value time, like I said before. Very serious. So that's how I do it. I let them know straight up. Like, listen, I do not like this, but if you do this one more time, we're breaking up.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you run into, and I'm not sure how to phrase this question, have you run into, as you're dating someone or getting to know someone that has a fetish for wanting to be with or be in a relationship with a deaf person?
Repeat that to me again.
Have you dated or spoke with someone that has like a fetish, like a um
Hmm.
unhealthy wanting to be in a
Yeah.
relationship just
Okay.
because you're deaf?
No. I get the opposite to be honest. So some people may get intimidated that I'm deaf, and a lot of them like I can't date you because you're deaf. So I get that a lot. I'm okay with that. I respect everybody how they are. Dating someone who's disabled is not always meant for everybody, and I feel like that's okay with me. But I never got that to be honest. I get a lot of people date me because I'm very pretty, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not for my deafness. So, but yeah, no, I don't think I ever came across something like that. No.
Well, you stated that, if someone says, I can't date you because you're deaf, you're okay with that. Have you always been that accepting and tolerant, or did you have to, like, as you aged and, in this dating world, become accepting of it?
So I didn't start dating until like I was 19 years old. So
Okay.
so it's something had an age, I would say. So it was not something off the bat. Like no one teach you about the dating world. The generation's always changing. My family don't have a sit down conversation with my whole dating. I didn't even know. I had to figure it out on my own. I'm like,
Oh,
what is dating?
okay.
Like until I started dating my very first boyfriend, that's when I finally told my family that, and then they finally had a sit down conversation with me. But thankfully, he was a good guy. He's amazing. Um, I'm grateful that you had any back experience yet. And so yeah, so it came to me as I age. It was difficult at first, 100%, because I was like, I'm never gonna find a boyfriend. I'm never gonna find someone who's gonna love me for me, not with not my deafness.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something I did have to learn how to age. Yeah.
Are you, what are some misconceptions or some things that you would like for people to know when it comes to, okay, so that's two questions. Okay,
Okay.
as I'm asking, I'm thinking, okay, so my first question is, what are some misconceptions that you want to get right about people being deaf and dating? That's my first question. My second question is, what do you want people to know about dating someone that is deaf?
Okay. So the misconception that a lot of people get when they're dating someone who is deaf is that one, um, the communication, right? A lot of people think that you need to learn sign language in order to communicate with someone that is deaf. And so I always tell people all the time is that no, like there's some people who are normal hearing, and also too, I noticed that a lot of now I don't know why, but this is a new thing now. Is that a lot of time they think that if you're dating someone who's deaf, like you have to always talk for them. You don't need to always talk for them. We can talk for ourselves and we can speak up for ourselves. Like I said before, they were living their life fine without you before you come into the picture. So I feel like a lot of people need to understand that. You do not need to talk in front of them. You don't no, you don't need to do that. Act first before anything.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, a lot of time the also truth and misconception I get that oh like you can't do certain activities with them because they can't hear. Right? It's not fair to make them to make them feel left out in the world because they can't do certain things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, for example, if you want to go to a basketball game, then go to a basketball game. What's wrong with the basketball game?
Right.
Right? So it's like it doesn't need to be crazy, but you just need to figure out a communication style with them. And that's it, you know. So it's very sad because I see a lot of the deaf community who are not dating because they feel like they're left out because their partner whoever they're talking to or dating say that oh they can't do certain things because of their deafness. So you shouldn't allow someone to be able to define how you should be dating them.
Right. Right. Okay, so let's talk about technology and deafness and dating. What role does technology play and help with dating?
So technology is very helpful tool. I mean, now they have an interpreter through an app now, so you don't have to find someone to interpret it for you. So that's something I learned. I know that they've been developing a lot of apps lately. And number two, now there are Google Translation app, right?
Oh,
Google
wow.
Translation,
Okay.
right? So a lot of people can use their cell phone, type something on their phone now. It helps a lot, especially for myself. I remember during COVID. I'm a lip reader for those who don't know. I need to read your lips 24/7. If I cannot see your lip, I cannot communicate with you.
Okay.
So during COVID, it was the Mac, and on the call, I think it was the cashier, and then she didn't have a paper pen. She just pulled up her phone. She was just typing something on her cell phone, and she showed it to me. And then that's how her and I would communicate. Like she knew I was hearing, but she knew I couldn't understand her because I would hear a few words she say, but I'm like, I again don't know what you just said. I heard one word. You said
Okay.
cash. So that's a good way for technology. Technology helped me a lot do anything because without it, especially my cell phone, I can't go a day without my cell phone because I needed to communicate with other people who cannot understand me very well, especially those who are deaf and that sign language. You
Mm-hmm.
would need to carry your cell phone all the time, right? So.
What do you think? And I don't know, how far you are into technology or being a techie or anything, but because you're deaf and you have that lived experience, what are some things like within technology, whether that's cell phones, computers, that you feel would make being deaf easier?
I just feel like I wish there's more closed caption all platforms, not just specific platforms. For
Okay.
example, Zoom. Zoom just came out with the closed caption right after COVID, where Google Meet already had closed caption.
Okay.
So I wish that they had more of that. For example, any podcast platform, especially something like this, they don't have closed caption, unfortunately.
They don't.
And no, so a lot of people didn't know that until I had to tell them, like, hey, like, your platform does not have closed caption, like, what is happening? So yeah, so a lot more work needs to be done in the technology space. I'm not saying that it hasn't fully, but there has been progress in a good way. But there still needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done. And but yeah, I wish there's more closed caption in technology field.
What memorable experience do you have when it comes to being deaf and dating, where the person you're dating, you felt like, or you could see that they went like above and beyond to make you feel included?
Um, I would say a lot. I have been through a lot of good dating experiences. I really, to be honest with a lot of people, only had a very few bad ones, maybe two or three. It's not a lot. People be surprised because they're like, "Really? How did that person?" I'm like,
I
"Yeah."
promise I was thinking that, but I wasn't gonna say it. But that's
Mhm.
exactly what I was thinking, like, oh
Yeah,
my
a lot.
goodness.
You're not the only one. A lot of people were shocked, and I said no because I have a very high standard, and I am very upfront. I think you can tell by now, Crystal. I'm
Yeah.
very upfront. I'll be like, do this, bye. Because I love myself, right? Before I even started dating this whole dating world, I take care of myself. I take care of myself. I love myself more than anything. And so that's something my family always taught me was to love myself first before anybody. And so until then, that's when I came out the dating space when I was 19, 20 years old. And so because I love myself so much, I did not care who walked out. And so I think that's probably why I never really had a bad dating experience because guys are like, oh my god, like she has so much confidence in herself, like she doesn't care if I walk out. And it's like, no, walk out if you want to walk out. I don't care. So I don't um I don't get intimidated by people. You know, people are like, oh my god, you're devil. I can't take up that. That's too much baggage. I don't really personally care. I just always tell people straight up, it's before you start the dating world, learn how to love yourself first. How build that confidence in yourself. Because once you have that confidence, the more respect the person you're talking to or dating is gonna have more respect for you. So that's why I never really had that much bad experience yet. But you know, the bad experience I did had were again, I was in university time, we were young, we were stupid. And so he did find out I was deaf, and then he was so scared. He's like, I am so sorry, Kuna. We cannot do this anymore. I'm like, why? Because I'm deaf. And he's like, I don't want to be rude, but yeah. And I said, okay, no problem. Wish you the best. He's like, why? I'm like, yeah, wish you the best. I move on. And then it's just because I love myself so much. It's like, no, okay, bye. Like, and also, too, I tell people there's so many people in the world. Like, I don't know how many people in the world. There's a billion of people in the world that's going to love you out of
Yes.
all one person. You
Yes.
know, there's going to be that one person out of the billion people is going to love you for you.
You know what? I know this podcast specifically, Kellina, is about deafness and dating, but you need to do a training on just dating, period. Listen, because you are not here for it. You are not here for it. And I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Okay, so just a couple more questions for you, then we will say goodbye. What advice would you give to deaf people who are anxious or nervous or apprehensive about dating because they are deaf? I feel like that's a lonely world.
Yeah.
If you keep yourself from dating, actively prevent yourself from dating because you are deaf.
My advice to people is focus on learning yourself first before you go out in the dating world. That's my advice, number one.
Okay.
The reason why I said that because on nowadays, people just using people for no reason now. And I'm noticing that people are just dating to date or because they're lonely or because they just want something out of you. I've seen it a lot. Hasn't happened to me yet. Maybe. I don't know. I do not see it. But I don't care. But the thing is, if you learn how to love yourself and build that confidence in yourself, you're going to attract more respectful men or women in your life. And number two, I would say is learn what are you taking and learn what you're not accepting. I feel like a lot of us just go into the dating world just because everybody's dating. Like, no, you need to learn what works for you and what not does not work for you. I had to learn what works for me after my very first boyfriend and I broke up. I had to learn what something I'm tolerating and something I'm not tolerating. And thankfully, my very first relationship ever, my very first one, it was super great. It was a good relationship. I'm not gonna lie, but there were very little few things that I took on, but I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this again. And so, and always reflect on your previous relationship before you move on. If you don't reflect on your past relationship, you're not gonna grow as a person and for yourself, especially in the long run. And I tell people the reason why it's important to reflect on your relationship in the past is to really learn what you want for your future boyfriend, husband, whatnot, wife, whatever. You have to learn what it is that you want and don't want. And number three is do not be afraid to find a therapist or a counselor or a coach or even a dating coach to help you to really get back in the dating world because it's scary sometimes, right? Not
Yes.
everybody knows what they're getting themselves into. Like sometimes I don't even know what I'm getting myself into. And I get nervous too because it's like, oh my God, this is a whole new world. It's like you don't know how to flirt again. You don't know how to get your you don't know, right? This world is changing all the time. So do not be afraid to reach out to a therapist or a dating coach or a counselor to help you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, this is good. This is good, Kellina. This is good. And I'm upset to end this podcast, but we're not ending it completely because, and this is so exciting, Kellina is coming back for a part two. Yay! I feel like I need the hand clap
Yeah,
machine,
I
you
know,
know? Yay!
right?
Kalina is coming back for a part two on deafness and entrepreneurship. So that is going to be good. So she is going to educate me and my audience about that world. And, as you can see, or if you're on Apple, maybe you can't. She's a coach, she's an author, she's a speaker, she's like everything. Um, so she's going to come back and talk to us about that and educate us about that. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you will know when her second interview, her second episode airs on the Crystal Petry Podcast. Man, Kellina, thank you.
No
Thank
problem. Thank you for
you.
having me.
You should be proud of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And, I said this at the beginning of the podcast, but, just being deaf and dating was something I never thought about.
Yeah.
Just like, being deaf and being an entrepreneur was something I never thought about. So I'm just so glad that you came on my platform to educate, especially me, because, I'm gonna be bold enough to say I didn't know. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to my audience and to my listeners, again, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you'll get Kellina's part two on dating. I mean, not dating, excuse me, deafness and entrepreneurship. But you can get her podcast on YouTube Podcast and Apple Podcast. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.